All right. Before I show you all the coding in the dice game, I'm going to go through a couple of basics here. One is just my thinking process for the rock, paper, scissors, let's say. I'm thinking to myself, okay, how do I organize this data? If rock is one, there are three different possibilities for outcomes. So rock is one, paper is two, and scissor is three. So if you pick rock and the computer or player two is scissor, then you win. And it is a summation here, which is subtracting in this case instead of adding, but adding the negative of this number because it's the other person. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2. And that is a win. It's the only negative 2 when we do this with all the data. So again, rock and paper, a negative 1 is a loss. 1 minus 2 is going to turn into a loss. This is just one way to think about this data. So we can organize it in a way that we can create a function that will give us the result that we want. Of course, if it's the same, 0 would be a tie, right? Rock, rock, same thing here. Paper, paper is going to be a tie at 0. And scissor, scissor is going to be a tie at 0. So looking at this, I see, okay, there's only one negative 2. That's going to be a win. If there's a negative 1, it's a loss. And here happens to also be a negative 1, which is a loss. And the other loss is a positive 2. So all my values are different. If it's a 1, it's a win in both of these cases. And if it's a negative 2, it's a win. The only loses or losses are negative 1 and positive 2. So we can think about that, and let's code something real quick. Equals, we're going to create a random generator. Rand between, and as you type this, it should start showing up. You can click on it, and it's going to help you with the coding. Rand between, you don't have to have capital letters, but the computer automatically will do that. 1, comma, 3. We want a random number between 1 and 3. Enter. It's going to give us a random number. Again, I can code this. I can make this into a square. We're going to talk about how to format and make things so they are the way that you'd like it. If I don't want it to look like that square, I can code it with something more impressive, maybe a double line. I can change my color. If I get in here and do a few other things, I want to make the whole space colored, and I want to make the font a different color. And just like in writing, I can change the alignment to center it. And then let's make this even bigger. So it's a 3 now. I'm going to give this computer, give it a name. Here is going to be my square. And you'll see that random generator is going to change every time I change something. I'm just going to put a box here, and I'm going to say player 1. And again, code that up however you want. Format it. You can use Shift and move your arrow to select multiple cells. If I want to format the whole sheet, click in the square up here. It's going to highlight everything. If I click in B, it's going to highlight the column D. If I want to change the formatting just in a row, I can click those rows. So get each of those things formatted. Now, here's where I'm going to put my entry. But I want to know, am I going to win? So I'll put a 2 here real quick. Did I win? It kept a 3. 2 and a 3, that would be a loss. So here is where I'm going to put my answer. Equals, and we're going to do it like this. This number subtract this number. Now it's going to give me a number right here. And according to this number that I've just created, I've now made it so every time I enter something, a 1, 2, or 3, we're going to get the words next. It's going to tell me a result right there. So the next thing we'll be able to do is say something like equals. All right. Now we've expanded a cell here. what I've done is I can grab it and expand it. In a little bit, I'm going to show you how to do that with dice. But first, let's finish a little coding here that you can understand. So our computer is going to generate something. We don't want to put a number in. We want to be able to put in a word. So if I put in a word like rock, I want my number to show up here, which would be a 1. If I put in paper or scissors, same idea. So let's do this in 2 different ways. One is the computer, same thing. I want it to show a word, not a number. So here, we're going to use that coding. If, parenthesis, if this cell, I can click it, and that says right there, E14, E and 14, is equal, well, if it's equal to 1, I'm going to just click on the cell so we can change those if we want to, comma, then I want it to give me whatever's in this cell. Make it that simple. I could say parenthesis, or I could say quotation mark rock, but in this case, let's make it so we can just type stuff in, comma. So if it's not a 1, what's it going to do? Well, otherwise, I'm going to say if, parenthesis, and remember this was E14, E14 is equal, and again, it doesn't have to be capitalized, it'll automatically fix that. If it's equal to this number, comma, I want it to show that, comma. Otherwise, I want scissors, but in case I want to change that, I'm going to do this one more time. If this cell, oops, sometimes it'll disappear on you there. Double click it again. You'll see in the function f of x bar up here where your code is at. You can double click on it to see it right here, or you could edit it at the top. So I'm going to continue. Oh, that's why I forgot my parenthesis. If parenthesis E14 is equal to this cell, E9, then it's going to show scissors, comma, otherwise I want it to be blank. Then parenthesis for that first if, parenthesis for the second if, and I need one more ending parenthesis, enter, and let's see if that worked. Scissors, it worked. Now I'm going to do an easier code that you could also change this code to something easier that's going to give me a number here. So how am I going to turn rock into a number? I'm going to use the V lookup. Equals V lookup, the vertical lookup. Remember, every code that we use after you have that keyword, parenthesis, V lookup, we're going to look for this word, whatever is in that cell, and we're going to look for it. And I put numbers over here too for a reason. We're going to look for it in this set of data. I'm going to highlight that. So when it finds what it's looking for, it will result in the second column, comma, and I'm going to put a 2 for that second column. One more time, it's going to look for D12, whatever we enter. It's going to look for it in this range of numbers from F7 to G9, as it's called. It's going to look for the result in number 2, comma, and remember, we always in VLOOKUP, we're always going to enter in false here. So if we don't have an answer in there, it's just going to give us an NA, end parenthesis, and let's see if that works. If I type in the word rock, it shows me a 1. If I type in the word paper, it should show me a 2. And if I type in the word scissors, it's going to show me a 3. And now we have the start of our game. So who's going to win here? I can have it right here. Remember, the result is what we're looking for. And the result is going to tell us the answer. So you can use the if, or we can use the VLOOKUP again. I'm going to start this out for us. VLOOKUP, this number, this, whatever's in that cell, we're going to look for it in this set of data. What's going to tell us if it's a win or a lose. And it's going to result in, again, the second column over. And again, false. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I can't see there. It says win. Let's try this again. Rock to paper is a loss. Scissors. All right. A little bit about the formatting options. And then you can think through this whole process and I can show you a couple more things. So I've put a couple images over here. And real quick, I'm going to add another image. I'm going to look for some scissors. I'm going to 2-finger click or alt click, go to copy image address, go back to my sheet. In that cell, I want to insert an image. I want to insert it into the cell, not over it. I'll explain that part later. Go to the URL, and here I'm going to paste that link. There's my image. Insert the image. I have a rock, a paper, and scissors. These, if you want to get rid of some lines, let's say, I want to get rid of some borders, I can clear my borders. Ultimately, after I have formatted all of this, such as getting rid of all this stuff at the top, all this coding, right? I'm going to be able to take all these cells, highlight them, and shrink them down, color that in, and it's gone. So you'll get the idea in a minute. But one more thing I want to do before I make that disappear, and view, get rid of the grid lines so I can really color this up. I can really make this look really cool. I want to use some pictures. Instead of these words showing up, I want my game to actually show pictures. So here, I can easily say, just like we have the rock, paper, scissors, and now we have this, I can say, equals, I'm going to do the VLOOKUP again, VLOOKUP, parenthesis. It's going to look in, we're going to say this cell, we'll do this one for the computer, or actually we'll do this one for us. This cell, comma, it's going to look for it in this set of data. Don't worry about the numbers in between. And then it's going to display, in this case, not the first or second column. We have 4 columns. We want the 4th column to be what shows up. And you'll see why. Comma, false, and parenthesis. In this spot, oh, it already did it. In this spot, we're going to have the computer show up. Or actually, let's bring it over here. This spot, VLOOKUP, parenthesis, the computer this time in the same set of data, and again, the comma, 4th column, comma, false. If you want to know why it's false, and you can look up other ways you can do that, now it's going to show up there. And in the middle, I want this to tell me this answer over here. I could do the coding again, but I'm going to say do this answer right here. Whatever it says in there. Again, you could do an image. You could have something pop up that says you lose. So you can think of other ways to do that. But I'm going to say equals whatever is in here. All right. This wins the paper. So now when I type in rock, it should show me a rock. And it says I won the scissors. Now you get the idea. So the last part here, if I want to code this out a little differently, let's get rid of all this up here. Like I was saying, we can hide things. We can also change the font color. I could turn all the text to white. It's going to make stuff disappear, except for my images. Then I can fill that in however I want to. I could just leave it like that. I could add an image over here. So I'm going to show you how to add the image on here real quick. Something that we would call a button, because we're going to need that when we create the dice. So hopefully you've been able to figure out some of this coding. We're going to use a lot of the same stuff to create a dice game. But what you need to do is create a cell, create something down here. So you should have this part. You can change that up. Create a blank page that says not copy of dice, but just says whatever you want to call it. Double click it and give it a name. I'm going to change this one back to dice game. And you'll be ready for the next